Hello and welcome to the Canyons Are Calling podcast. I'm Cheryl, your host for the show. I can't believe it was already Memorial Day. I tried to get this episode out before Memorial Day so y'all could listen to it on your way to your amazing adventures, whatever you did, but that did not happen. Life got in the way, so I apologize for that. I'm doing it this morning so I can get it out before I head out to New York to visit my grandkids next week, so I'm super excited about that. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get into the Catskill Canyons out there this time, but I don't know, maybe, Joe, if you're listening to this and you have a free minute next week, let me know. Anyway, I hope you all had an amazing time over Memorial Day weekend and nobody got injured or lost or, any of those things. Hope it was all just amazing times had by all. I know Utah had incredible weather, and I don't think Zion had any rain like we had in Kanab the week before, so that's great. Let me know what you did. Let me, reach out and fill me in on your adventures. That would be awesome. You can follow us on Facebook at The Canyons Are Calling. Also, Instagram is Canyons Are Calling. Or you can just email me at thecanyonsarecalling@gmail.com. I would appreciate it if you reach out. Also on Patreon, I have a couple new Patreons this month, which is really exciting for me. It gives me some encouragement and incentive to keep going. So I appreciate the people that support this on Patreon. This show is like completely me. I edit it, I research all the stories, I do all the interviews. It's just 100% me. So if you appreciate any of the stories and you've learned anything, or you just, like the podcast and want to help it plug along, you can also donate on Patreon. It's patreon.com/thecanyonsarecalling. I have different tiers on there, and then each Wednesday of the month we have a canyon call where we just chat canyons. It's pretty awesome. So if you'd like to join on those, I really appreciate it. It helps me just financially get new equipment or be able to support rendezvous or just myself, buy a beer for having a good show, whatever. So anyway, I really appreciate everybody on my Patreons. They are amazing. All 14 of you. I love you. Also, if you want to just do a donation, like Tom Seeley has donated just via PayPal. A couple of other people have done that. So it's the Canyons Are Calling at Gmail on PayPal. Also, I have Venmo. A few people have donated through Venmo, and that's Cheryl's Rocks on Venmo. So anyway, I have links to all of that in the show notes. And I'm not here begging for donations. Like, what we're really here for is to listen to this story. So today I am here with Zubar Zafar, or also known as Z. And he and his group were doing Mystery Canyon, and he broke his ankle. And he is here just to tell the story of how he broke his ankle, why he broke his ankle, and what you guys can do to avoid that so that you don't have to hobble along through the entire Mystery Canyon on one leg and relying on all of your friends to get you out. So be careful out there. Enjoy this story with Z. So today I am here with Z, and he is here to tell us an awful story about how he broke his ankle in Mystery Canyon. Hey Z, how are you?
Hey, it's good to meet you. I'm doing pretty good, thanks. Well, it was kind of a bad circumstance, but I think ultimately I'm actually very grateful for the experience. And overall, at the end of the day, I can say I got something good out of it. So I wouldn't trade that experience. Well, I might, but I think overall, the lessons I learned were pretty important. And more importantly, the people that I was with and helped me were friends, made for a lifetime.
That is awesome. That's a really great way to look at the silver lining, for sure.
Yeah, I think, the way that it happened and the help that I got kind of getting out of the canyon and everything really kind of made me appreciate the people I was with. And that's what I really like about canyoneering is that a lot of people think that it's a solo kind of thing and it's about skill and knot tying and rappelling and all this stuff. But the reason I really like canyoneering is because I think of it as sort of like a team sport kind of thing. And I love the cooperation part of canyoneering. I love the teamwork part of it. And I like being in the position to be able to help other people or teach other people. but I never thought I would be on the receiving end of that. So it was definitely an experience.
Right.
But I think that I was able to not walk away, but at least hop away with my head held up high.
Yeah, that's awesome. I agree with you. Like, I know that a lot of people like to solo, well, not a lot of people, hopefully, but handful of people like to solo canyons. And to
Yeah.
me, I just love the team aspect of it, the just relationship building and the problem solving. So I always love to go with a team for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. I think having the right kind of team and the right people around you really makes the difference.
Yeah, well said. So let's back up a little bit and just tell me a little bit about how you got into the outdoors and how you got into canyoneering.
Well, I've always kind of been I've always kind of been fantasizing about being this sort of outdoorsy person. I don't think of myself as a super outdoorsy person. I try to be, I always wanted to be. I I'm a physician, and so I spent most of my time with my face, I guess, buried in books. At least that's the way that it used to be. And I've always daydreamt that like, get out there and I want to, go hiking and camping and climbing is was always a fantasy of mine. And I had no idea what canyoneering was until I came to Utah and I sort of settled down over here. And so I think the first time I saw Mystery Canyon, which is where this all kind of went down and happened, I came with an ex girlfriend, and we did the Narrows, and I saw these people who were kind of rappelling down the very last rappel of Mystery Canyon, which is like that waterfall rappel, and I was like, oh man, that's so cool. And everybody who was there hiking the Narrows would look up and would see these guys like rock stars, just rappelling down rope with like it was all majestic with waters, flying everywhere, and they're whipping their hair back just like a commercial and everything. And I'm like, oh man, I want
Gotta
to grow
do
the
it.
hair. I want to do that. That's what I want to. But I thought they were climbing, so I thought they were canyoneering. I actually had no idea they were canyoneering. I thought they were climbers, and they were just like rappelling back down. Later on, like several years later, when I finally came to Utah, I met a very good friend of mine, Jody Olson,
Yeah,
and she's a force of nature.
I
She's an
love
incredible
Jody.
person. She, and I told her that story. Like I've always wanted to go back there because there is a little bit of in my mind, there's a little bit of a curse of Mystery Canyon. The first time I hiked the Narrows, I twisted my ankle and sprained it on one of the rocks. And so this is how it all begins with it's always the same ankle and it's always the same problem. But when I described it to her, like I was walking through the Narrows and I saw these people kind of rappelling down. Um, I thought they were climbers, and she said, "Nope, that's canyoneering, and that's what I do. Would you like to come with me?" And so Jody and I now work together, and I have been going with her and kind of learning from her, since I moved to Utah, and it's been an amazing experience so far. And that's kind of how I got into canyoneering. That's not how this accident happened. Unfortunately, at least Jody wasn't with us. I have this strong suspicion that if Jody was with us, nothing bad would have happened because she is always about safety, which is what you want in a canyon leader.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Shout out Jody. How you doing?
Hey, Jody.
Okay, so you got into canyoneering, and how many canyons had you done before you did this particular trip?
I don't actually really count the number of canyons I
Right?
do. I probably lost count. I just
I
do
know
them,
what
right?
you
And I
mean.
think my
Yeah.
first experience going with Jody was like she had put me on rope and like, all right, here we go. And I think we did Yankee Doodle, which that first 150 was it 100-foot rappel, which is like ends in a free hang, or is it,
Hmm.
the entirety is pretty much a free hang. So that was my introduction to engineering, and I loved it. I was like hooked on it. I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm doing this now, and it's just been a great experience. Jody and with Chad and Corey and Sterling and the rest of the group, we would go canyoneering, try different canyons, and I would pick up skills just by watching them and trying it out. But I really am a strong believer that if you really want to get good at something, you're never going to be as good as you could be, learning it in a classroom. You need to get out there and you just need to do it and get that experience so that you know what it feels like. These are skills. You can learn about skills, but you can't really develop skills unless you're out there and actually doing it. And so I don't really keep count. I just try to keep going as much as I can and learn as much as I can from different people.
I'm kind of the same way. I did used to have a list and I found it like not too long ago, but I'm like, oh my God, I've done so many more canyons since then. But yeah, I would have no idea if somebody asked me that
I have,
question.
yeah, I have this thing where in the very beginning, right? In the very beginning, like I would my sort of contribution to the group is that I would make these like little stickers of the canyons that we would do, and we would stick them on our helmets. As sort of like our helmet would be our canyon resume. But
Ah,
that very quickly, we ended up doing so many canyons, it was hard to keep
right.
up and keep making new stickers. I was like, you know what, forget it. Like, let's just have fun. But yeah, I just like getting out there, and I was really bummed out after I broke my leg that I missed out on almost all of last season. But I'm back out there and I'm super excited to go this season.
Good for you, because I know how it feels to miss out on a season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good for you. All
Well, I hope
right.
you feel better soon and get back on rope.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. Anyway. So let's go to the day that you were in. Is this the first time you did Mystery Canyon? Or had you done it with Jody
This was
prior?
No, this was my first time doing Mystery
Okay.
Canyon.
It's super hard to get permits. I think they only let 12 or 18 people in a day. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it was hard to get
yeah.
permits, and we finally scored permits. I don't know who did it. We all put in for it, and so I think somebody got it, and we were super excited to go. Jody was actually teaching for I think it was Canyoneering Chicks, that the group that she joins and she teaches and leads.
Yeah.
And so it was mostly a guys trip, and we went down there. I think it was a guys trip. There was Jody and everybody else was out doing Canyoneering Chicks, and it was just the guys.
Okay.
And we had two sort of newcomers to the world of canyoneering, Cole and Cade, and I went with a few other friends, Corey, Chad, and Sterling, and we went there, and I was really excited to get back to Mystery Canyon and to sort of like defeat or the curse of Mystery Canyon, I guess, because every time I go there, I get hurt in some way.
Oh, man.
Um, but when you're excited and when you're overexcited, I guess the canyons will humble you for sure. You will
Hmm.
get put back in your place. That's exactly what happened to me because I took a risk that I probably shouldn't have taken in hindsight.
Okay. How did, like, what go into detail on that risk? What did you do?
So this is kind of where I think that, really the most important skill to learn in canyoneering is risk assessment because you just have to be out there and you have to know what risk is worth taking and what you should just probably walk away from or not do. And it's a difficult skill to learn and to master, and there's no other way to do it besides just getting out there. And so I think people who are in the Pacific Northwest would probably look at everyone in Utah and kind of laugh at us because they're head first into water, I guess. But here in Utah, like the pools of water are they're not free flowing. They're kind of stagnant water. They're gross. They're stinky. There's dead things in there. There's,
Yeah.
urine
They
and other stuff. And
stink.
you
They're
want to try
gnarly.
to exactly, it's
Sometimes
not
there's
the kind of
maggots or bats or yeah.
exactly, it's not the kind of free waterfall, majestic, beer commercial type of waterfall that people in the Pacific Northwest are repelling into. Get through. It's really kind of stagnant, so we try to avoid it at all costs. Otherwise, you'll be like smelling that for the entire canyon. And so there was this one part. This is right before Mystery Springs. There's a bunch of smaller rappels that are there, and some of them are actually pretty down climbable.
Hmm.
So when we were going there, I think, Mystery Canyon has a life of its own. It tried to kill us from the very beginning. The approach, I remember, was not as straightforward as many other approaches for canyons. I remember like we hadn't even reached the beginning of the canyon yet. We were just doing the approach, and this giant boulder just comes crashing down, and thankfully misses all of us. And I think it was Cade. He had to literally jump out of the way into a bush because that boulder was massive. It would have definitely hurt someone. So that was
Were
the beginning,
were you
and
in the
that
death
should have been
gully at that part?
sorry.
Were you in the death gully when the boulder came down?
I think so. I
Like
think
that
that's
steep
yeah.
down climb down?
That, Yeah, I remember. So
That
the
thing is
approach for
brutal.
mystery is not the greatest approach that I've ever
Nobody
done.
talks about that approach, right? Like nobody
Right.
tells you that you're going
It's
to be
tough.
going
Yeah,
down, down, down. Like it's almost
right.
so steep you can't really go down it without like
Exactly.
sliding.
Yeah.
But
You have to be
yeah.
careful like, when you get down there, and it's like it's not a well beaten trail, right? And so
Mm-mm.
rocks are just falling down, and I think just one giant boulder just came down and just missed
Wow.
Cade because his reflexes were, cat like. He just jumped into a bush and that boulder just rolled away.
That's
But
less
that was the
lucky.
first sign that the canyon was out to kill us. I'm convinced, right? And so there was this one part when you start to enter the slot, right? You'd have to stem around the water and bridge. There's a little bit of stemming, there's a little bit
Hmm.
of bridging. And Corey and not Corey, um, Cole and Cade were ahead of us, and so they were new to canyoneering, and they're climbers. They go to the gym and they climb, and that's kind of, they have a little bit of that experience, so they're pretty good with that stuff. And they were able to bridge, the slot canyon over this pool of water. And I think Sterling tried to do it as well, but almost fell himself. And then Corey comes to his rescue and grabs him and stops him from falling down and hurting himself. Meanwhile, me, like the idiot that I am stuck thinking I can do this. Like if Corey and Kate can do this, I can do this. No, not a big deal. And so I'm trying to bridge through this small narrow slot, which gets wider and wider. And the only way to successfully bridge it is to actually go up higher and higher, right? And so I'm trying to do that, and on the walls, I lose my footing. My foot slips on the sand, and I fall right leg first into the pool of water, which is actually a lot more shallow than we thought it was. And then I kind of invert my foot, and immediately as that happened, I'm like, "Oh my god, I know exactly what's gonna happen." It's like I can see this happening in slow motion in my mind as it was happening, and I'm like, I'm not walking away from this. There is a fracture happening here, and so there's a little bit of hope. It didn't hurt immediately. Like I remember, like I was actually laughing a little bit after it happened. I was like, "Oh, that was stupid." And then like I try to get up, and immediately I knew something was wrong because I could not put weight on my leg anymore. Like my ankle just had lost all strength, it had lost all power, and I could not put weight on it. And that's when I knew this is most likely not a regular, this is not a sprain. This is not, this
Yeah.
is something more serious than that. And so, Corey and Chad kind of helped me to the side, and I'm sitting down, and within seconds my foot starts to swell like a lot. And I take off my shoe, I take off my sock, and I can see the swelling is becoming like increasingly concerning, right? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the throbbing and the pain kind of just hits, and I am like in severe pain. I'm breathing heavily, and I know, okay, this is for sure, this is fractured.
Yeah.
There's always that little part of you that's like, maybe it's just a really bad sprain. But no, the smart part of him, like, no, you're not walking on this. You have to
Yeah.
rethink this. You have to kind of come up with a different strategy here. And so really quickly, we take out our first aid. I take out my first aid kit, and I down some Tylenol, some ibuprofen, and I just sort of wait for a little bit. About half an hour, 20 minutes to half an hour later, it kind of kicks in. I feel a lot better, more calm. My heart rate is a little bit better. And now we have to make a decision. What do we do at this point? Because clearly I can't walk on both legs. There's clearly a fracture. I Sterling had a brace with him, and he tried to put it on me, to see if that might help stabilize that. And I remember the second he just touched the skin of my ankle, I was excruciating pain, and he couldn't even put the brace on. I was like, no, I don't want anything on it. Just
Wow.
leave it alone, because it was very painful. So, I'm checking to see, do I still have good circulation and, my toes and everything? As how serious is this? Everything seems to be okay. The pain is a lot better. I can stand on one leg, but I can't put weight on the other leg. And so that's when the adventure began.
Wow. So you're just barely entering the canyon at this point,
Right.
and you have
Exactly. We haven't gotten to the springs yet. We're just just at the entrance of the canyon, and this happened.
And Mystery has what, like 12 repels or something? So you
Around, I lost count honestly because I at
have,
that point I was having repels, but yeah, I think it has about 12 or 13 repels.
okay. So what did getting out of the canyon look like? Were you ever able to brace it to give it any stabilization, or did you just deal with it?
No, I just dealt with it. I was like, I just have to get it. So the decision was, you know, we either we call for help, which we tried doing actually. So we were thinking, okay, we might have to call SAR and I might have to get out of here, with some help. But then we very quickly realized that one, there is no signal, even with the Garmin InReach. You're not always guaranteed to get a signal in the canyon. You have to find a place that has decent elevation and you can get a good signal. So we didn't have that where we were.
Yeah.
And so we decided we'd have to like power through and move forward a little bit to try and see what we can do. Um, and then we quickly realized that even if we did call SAR, they're not coming in with like a helicopter or anything and getting me out. They're probably just going to drop some water, some food, and some blankets, and I'm going to have to stay there overnight until the next day, where they can sort of figure out a way to get me out safely.
Hmm.
And so the decision we had to make was, well, are we going to wait for that and do that, or are we going to try and make it out ourselves? And so, at that point, the meds had kicked in. I was feeling pretty good. I was like, you know what? I have a spare leg. I think I can go a little bit more forward. And so we tried. We were looking for things like branches and like sticks to sort of to use as a crutch.
Right.
And we just started hiking when we just started going through the canyon. And I think what was like really important was Sterling had really kind of set up these sort of fiddlesticks and smooth operators where we could actually, instead of down climbing them, I could just rappel down, sort of on one leg, kind of rappel, and it seemed to work. And I was feeling fine at that time. I was like, okay, you know what? If it's going to be like this, then I think we can keep going for as far as we can keep going, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, but of course, the canyon had other things in store for us.
Such as.
Well, so when we were going through the canyon, the rappel started to get, more and more challenging. I remember there was this one thing that gave me a lot of confidence. This one rappel. It wasn't a free hang. I think it was one of the first, I'm going to say 50 or 60-foot rappels. And I'm going to do this on one leg. And it was fine. It was just a wall. It was a smooth wall. It was a very easy rappel. So I'm like, not a big deal. So I do it. I rappel down on one leg, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. It's not a. This is doable. This is risky, but this is doable, right? I can do this. And of course, I'm not going first man down. There's always someone belaying me and someone catching me. And the whole time, I'm super hyper aware of keeping my broken leg sort of not touching anything, so I don't make the fracture or anything worse.
Right.
Right. I should have splinted it, but we didn't have Sam splints with us at the time. And the only thing we had was the brace, and that was just too much pressure for my leg to have, and so I couldn't tolerate that. I was worried that I was gonna cut off circulation, to the rest of my foot if I had put that on.
Gotcha.
So as I was going down, I thought everything was gonna be okay, but what was supposed to be like 13 repels in total, 12 repels turned into a lot more because we had to set up those fiddlesticks, and it took time. So I think you're supposed to be able to finish the canyon in probably 6 to 8 hours. We
Yeah.
left, I think, was it 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock? We were able to finish the canyon at that
Wow.
time. How we did it was a struggle.
Yeah, I can
But
imagine.
I I had even thought, I just told the rest of the guys, you know what, just it's fine. Just leave me here. Just finish the canyon quickly and call for help. Just do that, or just come back the next day. you
Right.
know, leave me here. I'll be fine. And I think this is the one thing that, I could not, well, I'll never forget. And is that nobody wanted to leave me behind. No one was willing to go off and just leave me there in the canyon alone. And everybody had this idea that we started the canyon together, we're going to finish the canyon. And so, with that, seeing all of that, there was no room in my mind to think like, okay, I should be complaining, or I should, pain is there, it is whatever it's there, but it's manageable. And it could not have been easy for everyone to help me hobble on one leg. I was kind of using one or two people as sort of human crutches, but none of them complained. None of them said everything. They were all willing to help me out. And so I told myself, I have no reason to complain about anything. These are like the best friends that I have in the world. I'm
Right.
not going to give this 110% of what I have, because that's what everybody else around me is doing as well. And, I think with that, we were able to finish the canyon. There were a few other kind of really sketchy parts that we had to go through, especially when the sun went down and it started to get colder.
Hmm. And then you can't
Yeah.
see where you're stepping. Hopefully, you all had headlamps.
Yeah, we did have headlamps. We couldn't see where it was going, but really, I think the biggest thing is once the sun kind of went down, it started to get colder,
Yeah.
and that's when you kind of really feel the hypothermia kind of set in. And then, if you've ever done Mystery Canyon, like the first half of it is kind of dry, or it can be dry,
Hmm.
but the ending is always, there's no escaping it. You're in water, right? And
And that Mystery Spring is freaking cold too.
it is cold.
It's
It
really
is really
cold.
cold. That was when I think I first realized this is a lot harder than I thought, because when the cold gets you,
Hmm.
you're, you know, you're not, well, there's a couple of things. One is, instantly that cold water is going to take away all your energy and all your confidence. It's just gone in a second.
Yeah.
And then when you're in a group, I think there was like six of us. Yeah, there were six of us. And when you're in the group and you're the person who's injured, the one thing you have to remember is that you're not hiking or being as physically active as everybody else in the group. So even though you're cold and you're wet, you're not generating that heat, because they will sit you down and you have to wait until someone's going to set up the fiddle stick or the next rappel before you can start moving again.
Yeah.
And those were the moments that I really dread. Like sometimes I wish like I would just get up and I just wanted to hop around on one leg just to generate heat, because
Right.
once you're sitting down there, and you will get cold very quickly, and that's when the muscle cramps start to happen. There were parts of my body that was not injured, but I was starting to feel a lot of pain. I remember my stomach and my shoulders would kind of lock up because of how cold it was, and just to force it to move was very painful. And then I started to get dizzy, and so the pain started to come back, and I had to take more medication to sort of calm myself down and deal with the pain. And then I was actually looking forward to the rappels and to the moving, just to generate that body warmth and that heat, because when you get hot, you sweat even more. You're not staying dry. You're
Right.
in a wet canyon, and then you're also sweating, and the temperature goes down very quickly in that canyon. So you get hypothermic very, very quickly. And
Yeah.
that was a real challenge. And I think the biggest, or the sort of there was one part where I kind of remember I was already starting to get a little bit dizzy, and um, maybe like a little disoriented. It was the second to the last rappel. I don't know. I think it was the second to the last rappel, where you have to kind of rappel down this waterfall, and you're kind of on this ledge. It's kind of like, it can be
It's that
almost
weird
like a
rock,
270.
right?
Say that again.
Is it that weird rock one?
It's that weird rock. And there's
Yeah.
two sides you can go down on,
Right.
right?
Okay.
You can
Hmm.
go down on both sides. And I'm looking to one side, and I remember Corey and Chad were telling me, like, um, rappel and aim for the log. Stand on the log. There's this log at the bottom of the pool which you're supposed to end your rappel on. So like aim for the log, because I couldn't swim with one broken
One
leg.
leg,
I
right?
think you are a swimmer. You can't swim with a broken leg, and so I was like, okay, just get to the log, and then we'll pull you towards us, so you don't have to swim, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this at the time, but when you're standing on that rock, you can go either way. You can go forward or backward. So I look forward. I can't see this log that they're talking about. And I look back, and behind me, there's like this pool with
Mm.
water, and there's a log there. So I'm like, okay, that's the log I need to go, to go to, the one behind the waterfall. And I think distinctly remember them say like, unclip yourself. And and jump, and I thought they wanted me to jump in the pool. And I was like, why would they want me to do that?
Hmm.
Like, why would they actually, like, but I trust them, right? At this point, I'm tired, I'm dizzy, and I'm like, why would they want me to unclip myself from the rope and jump in the pool? I don't understand
Right.
this. And so like I'm too tired and I'm exhausted. The sun is down, so I'm like, fine, So I unclip myself, and then part of me is like, this is not making any sense. Like, this is extremely unsafe right now. Like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And so I'm shouting at them, like, are you sure you want me to do this? This is what you want. Is this what you really want me to do? And then they see the rope kind of dangle without me, and they're like, stop, stop.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I swear, when you're tired and exhausted,
Yeah.
you will, I don't know what you'll tell yourself, but it's something, the delirium or whatever that is, you got to be very careful with that. So they swung the rope back to me. I grabbed it, clipped myself on, and I was asking them, which way am I going to rappel, forward or back? And they told us, towards us, come towards us. And that's when I, started rappelling down, and I realized you can't see it from where you are. There's another log that's down at the bottom of that. That's what they wanted me to do, to get to that log that
Yeah.
was in the base of that pool. And if I had gone the other way, I would be in this gigantic pool of water, unable to swim, unable to hold on to anything, and
Yeah.
that would have been catastrophic. So, communication is really important. And also, when you're tired and exhausted, sometimes you hear things.
Yeah.
And you just got to ask yourself, does this really make sense in the time, in the moment that you're in? Like, yeah.
Right.
So
And
lesson
like get
learned.
the verification from your friends because it's a good thing you were like, is this really what you want me to do? And that they
Yeah.
noticed that you had unclipped from the rope and like everybody was on point and paying attention to everybody else
Right.
that was around, which
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
how it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, once you start getting hypothermia, I've been there and you just get really confused. And I've
Yeah.
also had friends that are like telling me how to rappel, and I'm like, what is he doing? Oh, he's getting hypothermic right now and he's confused. So he's telling me what to do because he's walking it through on his, like, for himself, right? And luckily,
Yeah.
this guy in this particular situation that I'm talking about now, like, knew what was going on and he kind of was like, I need to go down this last rappelling inlay and start hiking down the river because I need to get my body moving, which was smart. But yeah, yeah, hypothermia is no joke.
It is no joke. No, for sure it's not. And, always have a backup plan.
Yeah.
And I think in hindsight, there are like so many things like we could have done better,
Yeah, I have one
But
question offhand. Like, what type of backpacks do you have? Because I know that Jody had gotten a couple of inlay packs for Chad and some other people, but I don't know if that's what packs were available that day.
yeah. So I think they had inlay packs. I had, yep,
So some people don't know this, but the Imlay backpacks are kind of designed with first aid in mind. So you can take the frame out and it's like a foam pad
yep,
usually, and sometimes it's plastic, and you could maybe use that as a makeshift SAM splint. The heaps and the old collabs have tent stays in them that are definitely great for like splints and stuff if you don't have anything else available. But a lot of people don't know that. So unfortunately, you did have that stuff available to you, but probably didn't know that it was there.
yeah. So I think none of us knew what was there, and I think that's a,
Yeah.
that's a second learning point. I think a lot of people will go to their to an outdoor gear shop or something and buy one of those pre-made med kits. I think it's probably much more useful to just make your own.
Yeah, for
That's the
sure.
one thing that I learned after this is like, don't just trust, don't just like pay money and then get like a ready-made kit. Like, foresee the complications and foresee the challenges that you can have, the injuries that could potentially occur, and then design your own med kit to specifically deal with that. I think your money is much better spent there. And when you pack it yourself, you will, or create one yourself, you will know what you have, what gear you have with you, and that's invaluable. Because when when you don't realize that, oh, this whole time I had a Mylar blanket in my first aid, I just never looked. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you're not thinking about that stuff when you're hypothermic and confused and in pain, right? You're not thinking, I'm like,
Right.
what did I pack last night? But if you did that already, you have the memory of that, right? And
Yeah.
so it will come to you naturally, like, okay, I prepared for this. I have something. So I think that one of the key things here is just make your own first aid, for the injuries that could potentially happen. I think I had one of those slot bags. And it's funny you mentioned the backpacks. I think the after it was like after it was all done, I bought everybody backpacks as a thank you for helping me survive and get through the canyon. I just like went to town and everyone who was there got like one of those like backpacks as a sort of thank you gift for me for saving my life. Basically, that's because that's exactly what those guys did.
Yeah.
And then so finally the last rappel was painful. I think that was the one. That's when you actually have to go down the narrows, the waterfall that's there.
Yeah. And it's really
And
slippery.
exactly. And I have to
You have to
balance
use both
on
feet.
one leg to try to do it. And I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. Like that's not gonna happen, right? So I soft started that, and then instead of rappelling, facing the wall, I flipped myself around and just rappelled. Like I bent, basically just slid down the entire thing. It was a giant water
Okay.
slide for me,
Yeah.
holding the rope. And that actually worked out. But the only problem was that, you're sandwiched between the rope and the wall,
Mm.
basically. But I was able to make it down as if it was like this giant water slide. A lot of the control was, thankfully because of my belayers who were watching me carefully and making sure that I did not, that I stopped when I had to stop and just sort of very, very gently, lowering me down until I got to where I was supposed to go. And that was then there was the hike through the narrows. That was the curse of Mystery Canyon, again, once
Yeah.
again with the broken ankle. Well, the first one was a sprain, and now I had another broken ankle. Um, just going through the canyon, just going through the water. It was cold, and we had to use. I had two people on each side of me, and I was kind of using them as crutches. And they would take like two steps forward, and I would take one giant leap with my leg, and that's how we would kind of make it out. And so the entire Mystery Canyon done on one leg.
Oh my God. And
But
you're doing all that rock hopping in the narrows in the dark, right?
that's
Dang.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Thankfully we all had headlamps on, and Cade had I don't know, the Cadillac of all headlamps. I don't know what he had, but it was like the brightest one. It just lit up the entire canyon.
The entire
And it was
canyon. That's
probably like
awesome.
1,000 lumens or something. And we were able to see everything. And so thankfully he had that. Um, and then I remember finally at the end of it all, we were kind of waiting for the rangers to come and to sort of help get us out and get us to our cars. And I remember feeling like super exhausted and so tired. Like I knew that there was a chance I could pass out, not because of like hypothermia or anything like that. I think I was just really super exhausted and spent, and I had really like given everything to get out of that canyon. So I just decided, let me just sit down on the floor in case I do fall and pass out. I'm not
Right.
falling. I'll just sit on the floor, and if I pass out, at least I'll just slump over, and that's fine. So the next, the sort of the drive back to our hotels, what we ended up doing is, we were all hungry and we were tired and we were thirsty, and we got burritos. I think were the only thing that was available, and I didn't care, so I got this giant burrito. And I remember like trying to get warm in my hotel room. I turned on the shower to get some warm water, and I'm sitting like butt naked in the shower with a burrito in my hand, broken leg, like up on the
Oh
tub, and I'm
man.
just like getting warm eating my burrito. It was the
Wow.
most ridiculous thing I've ever done, but it was definitely an experience.
That sounds crazy. So, aside from learning that to pack your own first aid kit, I feel like I took a woofer class kind of early on in my canyoneering career. I've taken a couple just to keep it refreshed. But so we had seen a girl that had fallen on the last rappel in Imlay Canyon because she rappelled on the wrong side of the rope and she shattered her ankle. And we had come out of Orderville and gone up to try to help her because a friend of ours was a first responder. And I was like, this girl is clearly very experienced. Like, how does that happen? Right? It just blew my mind. And then after that, I was like, I need to take some first aid classes because if anything like this happens to my friends, we need to know
Yeah.
how to figure it out. But yeah, that's kind of when I learned that the first aid kit that I was carrying for a couple of years was completely irrelevant. Like it had some band-aids in it, but if you get cut
Yeah.
in a canyon, like I don't know,
Yeah.
you're not going
No,
to stop
exactly
and put a
right. Like,
band-aid on it unless it's like gushing, and then a band-aid's not really going to do any good, right?
exactly. Like when you go to a Walmart or when you go to like an outdoor store, you just get one of those packs that have like 1,000 bandages on it. It's not gonna really help you with the injury that you have. So you really have to prepare for what could potentially happen when you're there. I think the most important lesson that I learned is really like proper risk assessment. Like sometimes the water is stinky, there's dead stuff in there, but sometimes you just walk through it. You know what I mean? Like in hindsight, if I were to think and talk to myself again, I would say like, look at what you have to do to try to avoid this. Is
Right.
that riskier or not? If it's riskier than what you're about to do, just do it. Just don't do the riskier thing. Don't try to avoid it. Just walk through the gross water. It is safer than having to break an ankle or potentially like lose your life, right? So I think that's the first and most important thing that
Yeah.
it's very difficult to learn that in the classroom. You just have to be out there and assess the situation for itself, but never be so arrogant that like you cannot um that you don't foresee what could potentially happen. I think a lot of people like, oh, I've done this canyon like 5 times, or like I've done so many XYZ canyon before, it's harder than this. The canyons don't care, man. They will they will come after you. I think sometimes when bad stuff happens, it just happens. You can be experienced or inexperienced, it doesn't matter, right? Like when you're hurt, you're hurt.
Yeah.
And so when you do get hurt, all that stuff that you learned about first aid, all that, because same thing. Like I know first aid in the wild.
Right.
I've taken courses too, but like, when you're there and you're the one that's injured and you're in pain, you may not always, have the mental faculty to be able, all right, this is what I need you to do. This is what
Right.
I need you, you might not be able to be in that position,
Yeah.
especially when you're hypothermic, cold, and confused, right?
Exactly. If you're
So
the only one in the group that has that knowledge, that's kind of a bad
exactly.
spot.
So just going with people who share that knowledge collectively, I think is really helpful. Like I wouldn't have been able to make it out of that canyon if it wasn't for experience that Chad and Sterling had and setting up those rappels and guiding me down. Like that wouldn't have happened. Like if I didn't have them on my side, there's no way I would have made it out. So we rely on each other's experiences. So always be humble, and I think always like listen to what the other person is saying as well. Another thing that I'll say is I think whenever you go canyoneering, whether you just want to do this for recreation or whether want to make this a career, you want to be a guide or whatever. I don't really, that's not my goal. I just want to have fun and have a good time. But I want to be able to make sure that, I am able to do two things, right? I'm able to keep myself safe and I'm able to help keep someone else safe. And you can't have one without the other. Like if you can keep yourself safe, then you also know a little bit about how to keep somebody else safe. And
Correct.
if you say you can keep others safe but don't know how to keep yourself safe, then you're just full of crap, right? That's not a thing. So I
Hmm.
think if you can say these two things and focus on these two things, then I think you're in good shape and you're with a good team. But that's the most important thing, is the people who I was with. I trust them with my life, and they got me out. A lot of people are just there for the Instagram pics, and
Right.
they didn't know what to do, or they'd be the first person to jump ship. But I had, a quality crew. They were amazing people, and they really kind of helped me get past it. So there was this running joke that all you really need to get out of a tough situation is 1,000 milligrams of Tylenol, 600 milligrams of ibuprofen, and 5 really good friends. And if you have that, you can make it out of any hairy situation with one leg at least intact.
I love that. That's great. I need to check my med kit and make sure my ibuprofen's stocked up. But yeah, I mean, good friends is really where it's at.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
strong, skilled friends for sure.
for sure. And don't like second guess your own strength. You know, like whatever you think you like, whatever you think you can handle, whatever you think you've had enough. The chances are you probably can give 30% more. You know what I mean?
When
Like
you need
I didn't
to.
think I could ever do that, but when you're in the situation and you get pushed to the wall, you could probably handle it. Just don't develop the mindset that you can't do it. You know, because I think
Right.
that's also a risky thing to walk around or to go through a canyon thinking that you're inadequate is a setup for failure. You know, do what you have to do. You know, give it your best shot, and I think be prepared. You know, just be prepared, both mentally and physically,
Yeah. And equipment wise.
and equipment wise, for sure. Yeah.
Yes, that's another podcast for a different
Yeah.
time. Oh, wow. All right. Any more from that story that you want to talk about?
Um, no, I think that was kind of it. Don't make the same mistakes I made. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And if you're going out to technical canyons with friends, make sure you trust your friends, and make sure, you know, you're worthy of that trust as well. Do what you got to do, prepare, and you know, be the kind of person that you would want to have your back in case something went down.
Yeah, I like that too. Yep, be the partner you want to be with.
Exactly.
For
Yeah.
sure. Awesome. Well, I know the canyoneering makes me really hungry. What's your favorite in canyon snack?
So I a couple of snacks actually. I'm all about the snacks. You know, like if you guys are designing the next Imlay backpack, like make sure you have a special snack pouch in there because I think that's like all canyon packs lack that.
So I know that this is like off brand, but Ursula from Cure Perspective has this really great purse that I have dubbed the In Canyon snack bag. And it will fit. It's great. I love it. I carry snacks around in it all the time. So Gear Perspective does have a little in Canyon snack bag
I love so
that
I
you
will
can
I will carry
purchase.
rope and I will just bring out this giant sack full of snacks for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. I love snacks in the canyons. My favorite would be anything savory or salty. So um in the canyon we sweat a lot. I like the savory salty stuff. So jerky, meat sticks. I love those epic bars from like those bison bars. Those are pretty good.
Oh yeah.
And candy. So I like the cola flavored jelly candy, like best canyon snack ever in my book. I will always go with it. And even the dried banana chips are pretty good.
I love banana chips. They're my
Yeah,
favorite.
those are great canyon snacks. One thing I will say about that though is when you're in a situation like this, I think most people always try to have more food with them or always bring extra food. I don't know, like when I broke my leg and I was in all that pain and everything, food was really not the thing that came to mind. Like I wasn't thinking about that. And I think what most people don't realize is that when they're in a canyon, they probably entered that canyon like overfed, already. Like they had a big breakfast and they had something. So I think the more important thing is make sure you have water, like a lot of water with you,
Oh
especially
yeah.
in the desert.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even when you're hypothermic, you will get dehydrated very quickly.
Yeah. I have unfortunately learned the lesson of carrying more water with me a few times.
Yeah.
More than I should probably admit on a podcast. But yeah. And
Mhm.
also, the amount of water that you're going to go through is going to depend on the time of year, right? Because I
Yep.
did a hike in August and almost freaking died. I did the same hike in December with my husband, and we drank like a half of the amount of water that I had with me the first time. So, between the two of us, right?
Mhm.
So, depending on where you're at and the time of year is going to depend on how much water in the desert that you're going to need to bring. But there's a lot of
Yep.
times I'll tell people, like, you're going to want a gallon of water, and they'll look at me like I'm freaking crazy. And, but then they drink like a gallon and a half, and they're like, I'm glad that I brought that extra water, right? Like,
Yeah.
you need water here
Oh,
for sure.
For sure, you definitely need water. When it's summertime, you definitely need a lot of water. Even in the wintertime, what ends up happening is that because of the cold, you pee a lot more
Hmm.
frequently, so you will still get dehydrated pretty quickly. And so water is probably in my list of priorities. I would put water above food if
Yeah.
you're in a survival kind of situation. So definitely have more water. The if you feel like you brought enough water, you probably need a little bit more.
Yeah. Even having a backup filter isn't a bad idea, just in case there's a nasty pothole that you can filter out of
For
if you
sure.
need to.
Yeah.
Like having
Are
something available.
is the water drinkable at the Narrows? I actually don't know that.
Uh, n- I definitely would filter it. There is that chronobacteria, so I don't really
Right.
know.
That's
Even
what I
if I would
remember. Yeah.
filter, I don't know. That would be, I
Right.
don't know.
That's kind of why that's another good reason.
Filter
Like,
or
always just
boil and bring iodine.
yeah, the cyanobacteria thing. I kind of remember that briefly, so I don't know that a filter would have helped us in that situation.
Yeah. And
But
this year, I feel like because we had so much water over the winter, like this year may be different because the cyanobacteria just got there, like with the drought. And as far as I know, like a couple of years ago, has only been an issue. So if everything gets washed out with all of this water this year, it might be filterable again. But I would definitely, I don't know. Like, I don't know. If you have a good filter, would that filter that out? You're a doctor.
no, it
Okay.
wouldn't. I don't think so. That's why I think that's why we just brought water, but I wouldn't risk it. I
Yeah.
think yeah, just bring extra water.
Right. Right. It's only a little weight for
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
your
and you're drinking
life.
it anyway, so the weight's gonna come
Like
down
get
eventually
less
as you
as you
drink the
go through
water.
the canyon. Well,
Yeah, so good lesson.
speaking of beverages, liquid, what is your favorite after canyon beverage?
I like
Water.
a good
Just
I
kidding.
like something a little bit sweet. So I think I like those body armors
Oh
that
yeah.
they have. I like those drinks. That and probably an Izzy.
These are good.
Yeah.
I like this.
Like immediately afterwards, yeah, for sure.
Nice.
And of course there's tacos and beer afterwards, so yeah.
Tacos. More people should do tacos after canyon.
Absolutely. That should be the official canyon meal. There's a good taco.
It's just do like a taco bar at the end of the canyon. Everyone could bring like just one little thing for it, and then I don't know. I guess you would have to
Exactly,
have
yeah.
like a stove. I guess that might not work at a trailhead, but anyway, I'm a little hungry. Maybe that's what it is. So anyway, what is an essential piece of gear that you always carry with you?
Well, for canyoneering, there's
Yeah.
like I guess there's a lot. Helmet, harness for sure. Those are all essential. But one thing I think people kind of overlook is their footwear. What I learned very, very well at this thing is make sure your shoes give you confidence, right? I think that if you are hiking in a pair of Nike trainers, you are gonna break something,
Yeah.
But if you have approach shoes or the right kind of grip, I personally, like for me, I wouldn't do a canyon unless I was wearing something that had like a Vibram sole or something really grippy or sticky like that. But a lot of people, especially if you have to stem or
Yeah.
bridge,
Hmm.
so I think having the right footwear is like super essential, for me. It just gives you that confidence to do the up climb or the down climbs because people like really, I think that the most common place you get injured is during the down climb.
Yeah. Stemming and down climbing. I agree with that for sure. And I know like the first time I bought a pair of canyoneering shoes, it was really hard for me to spend like 120 bucks on a pair of Las Sportivas. And this was God like 10 years ago. Um but the first time I wore them and we were doing Fat Mans and I'm like walking on this certain section and I was like I feel like I'm Spider-Man, like I can do
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, I mean, I've definitely been very selective with my shoes in canyons ever since then because yeah, Nikes don't cut it in on the
Yeah.
sandstone for sure. For sure.
Yeah, definitely get the right footwear. So and I don't know, like I've seen a few people with those, like what are they called again? Those 510 canyoneering shoes,
Hmm.
the water sport that which you can't find anymore.
Right.
Like
I really love my water tennies and I can't find a pair to replace them. And the first 510 Canyon boot was bomber, but then Adidas took over and changed it and made like the Hydro Lace and the Hydro Pro and stuff and I hate that shoe. I haven't owned like I hate my
I,
Adidas.
I can't even find it. I can't even find it anymore. Like it's finding
Yeah.
canyoneering stuff is sometimes like finding gold. Like
Right.
once you find get a bunch. So like when I found the La Sportiva shoe, I know there had like supply chain issues over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I just bought like 2 or 3 pairs, and I'm like, all right, I have a stock. I'm just keeping it at home. Whenever one gets worn out, I'm just gonna switch it out rather than have to search or comb through the internet just to find the gear
Right.
that I want. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Once you find what works for you, you gotta hold on to it in this sport for sure. So why do you canyoneer? What has it brought into your life?
Oh man, a lot. I think the most obvious thing in this, like from this story, is that it's brought me a lot of lifetime relationships that I'll never replace. I'm so grateful for the friends that I've made here and the relationships that I've formed, that I don't think that there's any other sport or any other experience I would have had that would have given me the same experience. I know this was like a pretty harrowing experience having to go through everything, but just the friends that I've made, and the people who the relationships that we've built is just irreplaceable. And I am 100% committed to finally beating the curse at Mystery Canyon and finally being able to do it without getting injured. Is that's going to happen at some point. So that determination, but I think the one thing really is just the friendships is irreplaceable.
Maybe you could do like Imlay Canyon into the Narrows, then you won't get hurt that time. That would be a pretty epic trip.
Yeah, that would. Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I agree. Like the people that you meet in the canyoneering community are the best ever.
Yeah.
Love them.
Yeah, they're a really cool group.
Another shout out to Jody and Chet. Anyway, any safety advice that you'd like to leave our listeners with before we say goodbye?
Um, I guess, when you do something risky, always kind of second guess yourself. Think about what you're doing and just decide if it's worth taking the risk or not. Like it doesn't matter. When you're in the canyon, you're going to get dirty, you're going to get stinky. So just embrace it. Don't try to do anything to avoid that. Just embrace the fact that, this is a sport where you are going to get filthy, you are going to get dirty, but just have a good time. And getting injured to avoid getting dirty is not having a good time. So just embrace the suck and just enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Especially when you had to get wet later down the road, like that kind of totally
Exactly. Yeah.
stinks.
Just do it. Just go. Don't take that extra risk.
So how's your ankle doing now?
A lot better. I have a plate and 2 screws that's there now. But I'm back. I'm back at it. I'm not gonna let that hold me down. So I don't really remember what the name of the last canyon we did was, but we did a few canyons already this season, and we probably have a few more to go before the season. Well, it's gonna be a good season.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if we're gonna be able to do a mystery this time around, but maybe next year, maybe next season we will. Um, but yeah, no, it's great to be back out there.
Yeah, it's kind of questionable as to when the Narrows will even be open back up again.
Yeah.
The snowfall, it's kind of crazy. So awesome. Glad to hear you're back out there.
No, thank you.
The canyons are calling. We should probably go.
The canyons are calling. Well, I hope you feel better, and I hope I get to see you out there.
All right, there you have it. Hope you enjoyed that story with Z. Let's all be a little bit more careful when we're trying to avoid water, okay? Like sometimes, especially when you're going to get wet at the end of the canyon anyway, just embrace it early on. Sometimes the challenges of avoiding it aren't worth the consequences, as he learned here. It can happen to anybody, so just be careful out there. All right, if you have an idea for the show, please reach out and let me know at canyonsarecalling@gmail.com. Most of these stories, I would say probably at least half of them, have been people that have reached out and let me know either of a friend or of themselves. And so I really appreciate that. Also, make sure you follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. I have links to those in the show notes. If you like the show, please review it on whatever platform you listen, Spotify, Apple. You can leave reviews. Other ones you can just leave like 5 stars would be awesome. Oh, I just found out like we were number 5 on Grand Canyon podcasts, which is kind of cool because I only have done one Grand Canyon specific episode. So to be number 5 in Grand Canyon podcasts is kind of like maybe weird, but also kind of cool. So I really appreciate that. If you rate and review the show, it just lets other people know about it and so they can find it. Also, share it with a friend. Canyoneering is always better done with friends, right? So share it with a friend that you think might like it. And yeah, have a great day. The canyons are calling. We gotta go.